Standing 4,900 meters tall, Whitehorse Snow Mountain in November is a playground for the howling wind, chasing around after the loose scree. Everything seems to be asleep.
When you climb up high into the mountains, you will find some incredibly unique alpine plants growing in the rocky soil. Myconopsis bailei is one of the most commonly found species here.
Also known as the Himalayan blue poppy. This plant is popular among gardening enthusiasts in the West, but remains largely unknown in China, where it originated.
Judging by its leaves, this plant must be a blue poppy. This plant grows extremely slowly when the environment is unfavorable.
This blue poppy may have withered, but it doesn't make it any less beautiful to the botanist.
It's not dead yet. It's firmly supporting its seed pods, holding them up high.
The Himalayan blue poppy can grow at altitudes close to the snow line and is known as the flower closest to the sky. Since the discovery of its existence, countless people have climbed all the way up to the top of these mountains just to get close enough to study and understand it. There are approximately 30,000 flowering plants among the 35,000 plant species found in China. People have successfully cultivated nearly 1,500 species of these flowering plants. For plants, flowers are reproductive mechanisms. For insects, flowers are a source of food. In the eyes of humans, flowers are embodiment of desire. Flowers are appreciated for their beauty, given and received as gifts, planted as decorations, and linked with all sorts of auspicious qualities. Flowers are truly magical beings, but how do they come to be associated with mankind and change the world we live in? Deep in the forest, the seemingly quiet and submissive plants are engaged in a fierce battle, fighting for their right to survive. A non-stop war is taking place here, and every species must fight if it doesn't want to die. Here in the Gaoligong Mountains, a plant species has evolved beyond its limits and managed to survive the ruthless competition in the forest, known as the Rhododendron Gigantium, or Big Tree Rhododendron. This plant has been hailed as a legend by many scientists. The Rhododendron Gigantium is a variety of the Rhododendron prostystum, and as its name suggests, this plant is a giant. Rhododendrons rarely grow taller than 8 or 9 meters, but the Big Tree Rhododendron is exceptional. They can grow more than 25 meters tall. Such record-breaking heights makes these trees one of the tallest plants in this dense forest teeming with competition, and has made the Big Tree Rhododendron a species of huge interest to scientists. This is one of the seed capsules the tree produced last year. The seeds it contained have all been dispersed, gone to search for a new home where they can settle.
If a seed lands in the shrubs or bushes nearby, there's little hope of it germinating and growing. A seed can only germinate when it happens upon a place where it won't be required to compete much with other plants.
This big tree rhododendron seedling is lucky. The seed has landed on this rotten tree trunk, which can provide enough nutrients for it, and the neighbouring plants are quite accommodating. However, not every seed is blessed with such luck. In the eyes of this seedling, the world is an old planet waiting to be explored, full of uncertainty. Liverworts, the dwarfs of the plant kingdom, cling tightly to the ground with their powerful root systems, absorbing and storing water. A humid environment is perfect for the seed to sprout in. But it becomes less accommodating once the seed has grown into a seedling. The forest is also a battlefield, and every living thing is eager to expand its territory as much as it possibly can. Liverworts produce spores for reproduction, which gives them a strong competitive edge. This is a liverwort sporangium, or pollen sac, which contains a staggering number of spores. The pollen spores are hardy beings, always ready to take root at the earliest opportunity. If this seedling fails to grow up in time, it will be suffocated by the liverworts, and these invaders will happily feast on its body after it withers and dies. The seedling can only continue its journey once it gets rid of these annoying liverworts. But this cruel competition has only just begun. This big tree rhododendron is still a teenager, and it probably needs to grow at least another 20 meters before it reaches the right age to flower. In other words, it must wait for a century or more before it reaches full height. The big tree rhododendrons in the Gaoligong Mountains have exceeded the usual limits of their species and grown into such imposing giants because they were forced to. This mutation is the result of their desire to live and physical evidence of millions of years of evolution. These trees are about to enter the most important period of the year. This is the moment they've been preparing for all this time, and after all the hardships, struggles and gambles, they are finally ready to flower.
Are you good? No problem, I'm good.
The enormous size of this plant means that if someone wants to capture a comprehensive image of a flowering big tree rhododendron, they will need to have special photographic equipment installed in the right position. With the help of a camera with a telephoto lens, the person behind the lens can zoom in on the flowers blooming right on the top of the tree. People may think this moment is the highlight of the tree's life, but the tree is anxiously preparing for another much more important task. The flowers must be pollinated and made to produce seeds before they reach the end of their lives. The flowers have prepared some sweet nectar. This is the reward the big tree rhododendron offers to pollinators. However, big tree rhododendrons normally blossom around the Chinese New Year in January or February, a time when it is a little too cold for pollinators like bees, butterflies and moths. So what sort of pollinator are the flowers expecting as they sway 25 meters above the ground? A flock of beautiful cebias appear. As they stick their necks into the flowers, rooting for nectar, pollen grains fall into their feathers. Then, as they hop around the flowers feasting, they help facilitate the tree's pollination process. From a seed smaller than a sesame to a tree tens of meters tall, this giant tree has completed a century-long odyssey. Although they grow deep in the mountain forests, this legendary plant species was introduced across the world after people happened to discover them. This is a cross-section cut from the trunk of a big tree rhododendron, now stored in the archive of the Royal Botanic Garden, Edinburgh. The only other slice is stored in the British Museum.
This is the large specimen of Rhododendron Gigantium that Forrest cut down on his last expedition to China in 1931. It must have been quite important to him.
More than a century ago, Scottish botanist George Forrest frequented the southwestern region of China collecting plants. He secured samples of more than 400 species of rhododendron found in the Guoligong Mountains. Eager to share his findings with the world, he took this specimen, along with seeds of other varieties of rhododendron, all the way back to Britain. The mid to late 19th century saw rhododendrons from China being introduced to the West on an enormous scale, where their brightly coloured flowers caused a sensation. Since then, Chinese rhododendrons have become an essential feature, changing the landscape of European gardens. Of course, plants don't flower to please humans, but flowers, often the end result of a long and dedicated process, do bring people and plants closer to each other. Flowers have endeared themselves to us with their beauty and vitality and have become a fixture in people's lives. In Britain, mid to late May often brings balmy weather, making it the best time to go out and see flowers. The annual Chelsea Flower Show begins in London as usual. It is one of the most famous flower shows in the world, and one can always encounter some unusual plants here. One particular plant on show has attracted a lot of attention. There are purple varieties, white and red, as well as the stunning Himalayan blue poppy. These species fall under the genus Meconopsis. They are all native to China. This red-flowered species has been named Meconopsis punicea, or Sichuan silk, by botanists. More than a century ago, it was discovered here by a plant collector, E.H. Wilson. Wilson wrote in his book that he saw the dark scarlet flower M. punicea, and there were many thousands of this beautiful herb scattered around. Molecular biology techniques have confirmed that the Himalayan species of the genus Meconopsis are native to the Tibetan Plateau and surrounding regions. Most species of the genus Meconopsis can only be found in China. This place is an area right on the snow line. For millions of years, huge quantities of broken rock falling from adjacent cliff faces have built up this form what we call scree slopes. These collections of loose, unconsolidated, constantly shifting sediment are not suitable places for plants to establish themselves. The environment is worsened by dramatic changes in temperature, strong UV rays year-round, and monsoon-induced rain and fog. Plants have had to work with the elements to establish themselves here. The Meconopsis species faces a lot of challenges here and have to work hard to live and reproduce. In addition to landslides, freezing cold, and damage caused by UV exposure, these seedlings also have to deal with harmful animals. They can only grow into mature plants if they manage to survive all these threats. This plant species is sometimes forced to wait more than a decade after they first pop their heads out of the ground for their chance to flower. This seedling will have to endure this long wait, and it is doubtful that it will be able to survive this lonely, difficult process long enough to seize its chance. For those who have grown big enough to form flower buds, they still need to wait for the best time to bloom. A large proportion of the species are monocarpic plants, so they are very cautious when it comes to their flowering period. The weather on these scree slopes can change in the blink of an eye, making flowering more or less a game of chance. Plants here have evolved unique abilities to protect themselves against the unpredictable weather conditions at high altitude. The Meconopsis flowers here are often found drooping, not because they're unhappy, but because they are protecting their precious pollen grains against the wind and rain. As well as keeping the pollen grains safe, they also need to find a way to disperse their pollen. Many of the species don't produce nectar or give off any fragrance. They have their own unique way of attracting insect pollinators. The insides of the flower are often warmer than the outside, making them inviting shelters against the intense cold for visitors at such high altitudes. In return, the insects happily carry out their duties as pollinators. The flowers in the highest position are still blooming, even though they've finished their job. They are trying to stay open for as long as possible, hoping to attract more insect visitors. This is in order to increase the chances of successful pollination for flowers that bloom later than they did. The flowers will wither after pollination is achieved, but that is not what they're concerned about now. This flower has already been pollinated. The petals and stamens have lost their original colour, but the green ovary in the middle, covered with dense bristles, is swelling in size. The fertilised ovules within will soon develop into seeds. When the seeds are mature and set off on their journeys of life, the mother plant can finally rest in peace. This is the path frequented by this colourful plant, brightening the whole place with their exquisite flowers. People are inevitably drawn to it, and have already started exploring the possibilities of cultivating its beauty.
These are seeds here of Amiconopsis punicea. We are hoping to find some suitable environments in Yunnan where they can grow. They are notoriously difficult to maintain in cultivation.
This Himalayan species can survive in extremely hostile environments in the wild, but it has difficulty adapting to human gardens. Most of the cultivated species require professional care and maintenance.
It is very easy for these to die. They can go black, they can damp off. That means they get too wet and they get a fungal infection and they can die.
Although this plant species is hard to cultivate, their intoxicating beauty has driven people to persevere in this endeavour. More than a century ago, the seeds of the Himalayan blue poppy were sent all the way back to Britain from China. Ever since, people here have been trying to make them stay and thrive with them in their homeland. Flowers make an attractive sight for humans and have shifted the course of society's development and change. People's curiosity about these charming plants have also spurred developments in science and technology. Humans and flowers encountered each other in the wild, and science has allowed us to know increasingly more about flowers, primarily because more plants with delightful flowers are being introduced to people's gardens. A wild plant species grows along the banks of the Yarlung Tsangpo, where the climate is warm and humid. It is a close relative of the tree Peony, one of China's most beloved and revered flowers. Its yellow flowers make it a rarity among wild peonies. This is the Tibetan tree peony. Their seeds tend to fall near the parent plant when they mature, where they'll be sheltered from the wind and rain. However, this habitat also reduces their chances of survival. Most of them will end up being eaten by insects, but the plant is willing to bear this loss. It tries to produce more seeds by consuming more energy to make up the numbers. Some of these other seeds will escape the fate of being eaten and grow into new plants. The Tibetan tree peony has been living this way for generations. Each seed contains the hope of carrying on its ancestors' genes, as stipulated by the laws of nature. Such a low reproductive efficiency has meant that this species has never managed to cover an area of more than 30 square kilometres in the wild. Cultivated tree peonies exhibit characteristics very distinct from wild ones. Their flowers are more pleasing to the eye, bigger in size, with multiple layers of petals and delightful colours. The cultivars don't need to worry about nutrient shortages like their wild cousins do, and they thrive in the care of humans. Humans have helped flowers expand their territories, and flowers have added colour to the human world. There are more than 1,500 cultivated flowers in China, and this number is still increasing. As human society developed, our relationship with flowers entered a new stage. The China rose is a witness to this change. The China rose was shipped to Europe in the 18th century and forever changed the appearance of European gardens. The China rose bloomed repeatedly throughout the year. Its rich colours and sweet fragrance made the Europeans fall in love with this plant at first sight. The popularity of the China rose in Europe facilitated the birth of the global flower trade in a time marked by scientific breakthroughs, growth of capital from trade, and an economic boom. Flowers have become a commodity, part of an enormous global industry. Once seen as gifts from nature, they have gradually redefined the parameters of commerce. As receptacles for a plant's reproductive organs, flowers appear in a variety of colours to attract insect pollinators. Now, using special equipment and technology, people can recreate what flowers look like to the eyes of bees. The area where nectar is stored is marked with a deeper colour, pointing the way for the bees' convenience. Before flowers came into this world, plants had to rely on themselves to survive and reproduce. But everything changed when flowers appeared on this planet. Flowers have made survival less difficult for plants, especially the ones that attract and delight humans. Human eyes are more sensitive to colours than those of bees, which allows us to fully appreciate the beauty of flowers. This is what a China rose petal looks like when magnified 10 and then 20 times. The colour of a flower takes on new meanings when flowers are bred for this purpose of pleasing humans. Mankind's will and creativity have given rise to more varieties of flowers. Humans have the ability to change certain characteristics of flowers, such as their colour, shape and smell, to suit their taste and preference. This often gives people the illusion that they have deciphered the ultimate secret of life, and they are masters of plants. But the truth is that plants still grow in their own way. In many respects, they are beyond human control. % of the China roses produced in China are grown in Yunnan, where millions of flowers are bought and sold. As the lucrative date of Valentine's Day approaches, roses become the most sought-after flower, and flower farmers are eager to profit from the varieties of China rose that bloom at this time. A sudden cold snap has caught both people and plants off guard. The China rose has grown new leaves tinged with red. New leaves can produce more energy for the mother plant, but they are the last thing flower farmers want to see at such a crucial time. The China rose grows new leaves instead of flowers to protect itself from the unexpected cold weather, as leaves can produce more energy to ensure their survival, while flowers will only exhaust the nutrients they've stored. This is a survival instinct for the plant that is impossible for humans to change. Even though flower farmers try their best to provide enough nutrients for the plant, the roses still choose to follow their natural instinct when they are in danger. To the disappointment of the flower farmers, many China rose plants choose to protect themselves and do not bloom as they are expected to. Only a small number of the plants remain unaffected by the cold wave and decide to bloom on time. The farmers are hoping these flowers will fetch higher prices, as customers will have less choice when they visit the flower market. On average, this city sees more than 3 million flowers traded in a single day. The number can exceed 8 million a day in peak season. From here, flowers are graded, priced, and sold worldwide. In this place, every characteristic of a flower is measured and graded. The results will decide its economic worth. Cultivars developed and propagated to please the customer's aesthetic tastes are sold at prices that vary according to the flower's popularity. The spring cold snap has added a sense of uncertainty to today's audition. A natural wonder improved by mankind is what supports the global flower trade. The scars left on their bodies during their fight for survival are now categorized as a factor affecting their economic value. They are reduced to numbers on a screen, which must be read, processed and evaluated before the bidders reach their decision. Flowers labelled with different names and prices enter the market, ready to change hands. Throughout history, including here at this very audition, flowers have always had the power to enchant and influence human beings. Planet Earth is home for more than 400,000 plant species. They are the beings that made this planet habitable for all animals. Plants have nurtured and changed us both physically and spiritually. Flowers are the cradle of new life for flowering plants. The flowers bloom and then wither soon after. People have been quite creative with ways to preserve these blooms when they want to make a flower last longer. Halo cerise, halo red, spring celebrities crimson, blue chiffon, double white, sunshine, peaches and dreams, black night. The common hollyhock has many different cultivars, known by different names to people living around the world. It originated from Sichuan province and other areas of southwestern China. Hollyhocks were among the earliest Chinese plants to be introduced and cultivated in the West. It was imported to Europe 2 or 3 centuries earlier than flowers such as chrysanthemums, peonies, camellias, China roses and rhododendrons. Back in the 15th century, long-distance transportation was still a challenge for mankind. What helped the common hollyhock succeed in travelling across the seas and settling in a strange land? Perhaps we can recreate its journey based on the marks it left as clues along the way.
People may have started cultivating and appreciating the common hollyhock as early as the ancient Romans, because we have discovered the plant on murals painted during that period.
Images of this plant have been discovered in European works of art created centuries ago. Flowers have come to be appreciated by people of all different nationalities, races, religions, and cultures. They are not only applauded for their beauty, but have also grown to be associated with different meanings.
The hollyhock used to symbolize the nobility due to their imposing size and their unbending flowers. They also symbolized salvation. Like many other plants in the Malvaceae family, the common hollyhock has been used as a medicinal herb since ancient times.
It may sound a bit far-fetched to connect a humble plant with spiritual salvation, but this plant has been saving lives since people discovered its medicinal properties. Even now, you can still feel the existence of a healing power emanating from this blooming flower.
The common hollyhock is a hardy plant. They can manage their own growth without much care or attention from people.
Today, its resilience and medicinal value has made the common hollyhock one of the most widely cultivated plants worldwide. Their flowers have appeared in paintings by Van Gogh, Titian, Monet, and many other major artists. They have transcended their floral form to become a vessel of creativity. Nature has constantly amazed mankind with its charm, and flowers, which were first celebrated simply for their beauty and vitality, have gradually become one of the most popular motifs in art, religion, culture, and civilization. They are the embodiment of beauty and a source of creative inspiration. Humans often find the beauty of flowers irresistible. Driven by the desire to possess them, people start to grow flowers in their gardens. They also put them in vases where they are arranged in creative ways. Flowers have inspired hobbies, art forms and social traditions. Their colour, shape, fragrance and other characteristics can convey different meanings and emotions, such as hope, apology, desire, attachment, joy and regret. Although flowers are often short-lived, they signal the beginning of a new phase of a plant's life. Flowers are cradles of seeds and fruits. They are the future of their plant species. Slowly but surely, plants have expanded their territory worldwide. There are more than 35,000 species of plant distributed across the vast territory of China. They have become an essential part of Chinese culture, and their influence can be felt worldwide. We need to work with our plant friends to create a better future for our world.